Hi everybody. So this concept came up and I thought I might talk about it, the inner parent. It's pretty much impossible to stay on track. Words come out as they come out. Everything is unknown, everything appears. And so there's not even a trying anymore, but we'll see where this goes. So the inner parent. Most have heard of the inner child, coming from psychiatry. And in a way, the inner child is just another concept, and people can get really caught in a loop with that. It's sort of never ending, of this idea that there's some broken inner child and we have to fix it and heal it, and it can, in a way, it's perfectly fine, but we can become incessant about it. It can become an addiction where we're trying to go back in a time that is just no more, that in a complete illusion, everything of the past is just dead, it's graveyard, it's gone, but we're reaching back, which is just all mind activity, and trying to fix illusory things. So somatic energy healing and things like that can allow the body to release any energy that's been held, that we call traumatic, that we call blocked, but it's just unprocessed, unreleased, disallowed. More so about the disallowing. We just simply weren't allowed to let expression come out in certain ways. So the inner parent is, in a way, it's like the constant mind chatter that a lot of people will experience. And if there's as long as there's the seeker, whether we're talking about spirituality or non-duality, it's just essentially seeking truth. There's only this reality, this nothing appearing as everything. There's no room for anything else. There's no room for you. There's just nothing appearing as everything. But in nothing can also appear as separation, because it is infinite. So when there has been when time is dying, the illusion of time, in a first awakening, self-realization, where there is nothing but nothingness, but we're not yet the allness, there will still be the mind, which isn't a thing, but it's just the thoughts that will incessantly be wrapped up in this idea of time and the illusion of time, still with wanting, the desire for something other than this, maybe. And because, in a way, and I'll say this in a story form, that we've gone from the illusion of being a separate person to being nothingness, experiencing, seeing everything arise, until the allness, so that there's the nothing and the everything is just one. Or one is also misleading, because it's just not two. Until everything is gone, until this is completely emptied out. From the emptiness, patterns and behaviors and addictions will continue to play, and there will be an inner voice that might comment these things. So this is where ideas of positive and negative come out in so many realms. Like, there will often be a desire to be positive, whereas this, if nothing is being everything, it is both the negative and the positive. It's not having a problem with anything that we can call negative and anything that we can call positive, because there is no control over this. It's just seen that whatever arises, and it's just there. It's not even met. It's just directly there, and it just no longer has a label. It no longer has any resistance to it. Whatever appears is what is appearing. As long as there's an identity, then there will be, in essence, an inevitable push towards, I want something else, a resistance, a rejection of what is appearing, because of the inherent discomfort with that. So what gets seen clearly as there is a clearing out of the body of energies that were not allowed. So the image of the tree is a good one, that it's awakening, and which loses its sense as well, but just to call it something, because all of these words are just drunken words that are incapable of describing what this is. So it just doesn't matter what words are used, because they're all to be taken lightly. They're all to be, they just all rise and then they fall. So don't hang on to any words. But the tree doesn't grow and flower because of its external outlook. It's the roots that become stronger and deeper in the darkness, in the soil, that allow the tree to flourish and to thrive. So a lot of the so-called work of clearing out, that we can call it in non-duality, is simply the resisted energy comes to light. And because there's a lot of the resisted energies generally of the negative nature, because we've tried to appear a certain way in society and to others, and so some people call it shadow work, but for me all of that has no sense, in the sense that what appears is what appears, and it's just met at face value. So if we're going through a period of experiencing heavier emotions, heavier feelings, this is perfectly normal. It's just the clearing out of that energy. And it's normal because of this world, because of this society, because of the parenting that we all received, which is not of anybody's fault. It's just, it had to be that way. That as we grew up in this society, as children, we didn't receive dialogue from our parents that was, of course you're perfectly fine and everything that can happen is perfectly fine. And if that happens, well, who knows if that's a good thing or a bad thing? We'll see. Life just unfolds. We were given instructions on how to be. Don't put your elbows on the table, sit up when you eat, don't do this, don't do that, that's good, that's bad, don't play too many video games, why don't you go outside, don't stay inside. Why are you always like that? I'm going to show you what's right. So all of these sorts of dialogues that we receive. So it's one way to look at it as the inner child being wounded by these words because of its barriers or its freedom is being encroached. But what's happening to the cerebral network is that we're actually going to become the mirror of what we've heard. So because we've heard from our parents, our grandparents, our family, our friends, that addictions are bad, being lazy is bad, sleeping too long is bad, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. Inherently, the body that wants to simply move as it does. Sometimes it's tired and it might want to sleep a long time. Sometimes it might just want to relax on a couch. But there's an instruction that was previously received that's bad. And then all of a sudden, don't be surprised that there's that inner dialogue, which is in a way you trying to parent yourself, which is just a mirror of the parents' instructions that have been repeated and repeated and repeated in a kind of clockwork orange situation. It's just programming. So one of the shocking things that we find in the dying of all sense of separation, all sense of self or the I, is that it will take us into what is seen or imagined to be dark, but just isn't. So you might find for a period that the body will just want to sleep until midday. And sometimes the body just wants to veg out on the couch and watch Netflix. And it's just perfectly okay. The body's going to recover from constantly being forced into an excessive use of energy that it's experienced, that is considered in this society so normal, but is actually then seen as being complete and utter madness. But this flip, going from a life of running around because people are so caught up in the illusion of time that they're looking at their watches and running everywhere, that is perceived as being normal, but that is absolute total madness. So it's perfectly normal that when we are unprogramming ourselves or deprogramming, that there will be a discomfort, because everything around you will say that being lazy, it's got a word, lazy, and lazy is bad. And I spoke about this previously, but look at a cat, look at a dog. They're not going through guilt and shame because they're lying around for 10 hours in the day or more. A cat can sleep up to 20 hours in a day. But because we think as humans we know, we're always being pushed. And what happens in this transition is the excessive outsourcing of energy is just no longer possible. And that's why previous pursuits we may have had, meaning interests, hobbies, work, might just fall away and we might just not understand why this is happening, because it involved a massive output of energy that the body has no interest in doing. So a few weeks ago there was the marathon that was run here, and it's all, for me, perfectly fine. It's all just what's happening, but it's it was amusing to see just all these characters that will be willing to put their bodies through, 42-kilometer run. The body has no interest in that. But as long as there's a sense of an achievement that I ran a marathon, and so that makes me feel good about myself, that's wonderful. Well, then that's going to happen, and that's fine. I'm not going to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. But it's just amusing to see how the extent to which people will go inevitably to try and make themselves feel better about themselves, when all along you can feel perfectly fine about yourself doing nothing at all, or doing stuff if that comes up. So the inner parent is really that mimicking of the parents we had and of the adults we had that gave us instructions, and they're so hardwired into the system because they were, you could say, recorded on a blank tape of this child being a blank tape, and they're just all taken as given. So if my mum and dad say that's bad, well then apparently it's bad, and I've got no reason to question that. And then later on in life, you're sitting in your own house on your couch telling yourself that you're bad for sitting on the couch. So it's kind of mad. And if we can perceive that that's what's happening, that you can then bring a softness to this, because instead of fighting the mind about it should or shouldn't be speaking, I should be in silence or not in silence, that's just going to be a constant loop. It's bringing a softness to it. Of course it's acting that way, because this is the way it's been instructed, and that has to wind its way out. It just has to unravel when it's seen that that's what's happening. There can be a lot of guilt and shame wrapped up into that's coming over the top of just a natural way of being. So if you're going through this sort of phase and you find yourself sleeping for longer than usual, or wanting to just veg out, it doesn't mean it's going to be forever. And the body is way more intelligent than we could possibly imagine, and it knows how to receive cues. If money needs to be earned because there isn't enough money, the body will get a stimulus that will push it to go and do something to earn some money. The more there is just space, emptiness, awareness, then there's not going to be the resistance to these things. And so in a way, not only do you see when there's just nothing, that there is no relationship, there is no mother, there is no father, there is no brother, there is no friend. There is just what is appearing, and that may appear in the form of a person that you called mother or father, but that is just life. And so this comes on to one that seems to be a big sticking point for many people, is this idea of addiction. Because the inner parent is this constant inner management, inner control, and there is no control over this. This is just free to be as it is. So you just see it with softness, that it's just mirroring what it's been instructed to do, and then it will eventually just die. And so the addiction is the similar one, because it's in a way it's a stickier point, where this is really where we were told by our parents and society that addiction's bad. So this can be video games, smoking weed, addiction to social media, addiction to TV. The simple reality is there isn't a single human being in life that isn't addicted to something. Addicted to running, addicted to sport, addicted to earning money, addicted to wearing only nice clothes, addicting to only having things that I possess, addicted to time, addicted in so many ways to food, to good restaurants, that if anybody says anything about any particular addiction, it's just in a way an assumption that my addictions are better than your addictions. When it's seen that everything is just addicted, because in life, in a way, what's seen here is that a bit like seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, we go through phases, and this depends on things like the weather, our moods, energy levels. Sometimes there will just be a desire to look at YouTube videos for extended periods of time. But if we let it just be, that will happen for maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then it tends to just die out, because at a certain point we've had enough of doing something and then we want to change. Where we stick to addiction is the minute we create the idea that it is an addiction, instead of just letting it, having more a narrative, you could say, of this is just what I feel like doing at the moment, and I'll drop it as soon as I don't feel like doing it anymore. A real lightness to, I don't mind doing anything at any time. Then things can be picked up and dropped. But as long as we give it a word, addiction, I shouldn't smoke, we've created something solid. We've created a position, an opinion, and because it doesn't exist, nothing being everything is completely empty, meaningless, and only things we put meaning into have any apparent meaning. Because you've just created this meaning of addiction, there is now an addicted and a non-addicted, because the peg has been knocked into the ground. And now you're swinging on either sides of the illusionary peg. I'm addicted, I'm not addicted. And people who go through the 12-step program with AA, they were alcoholics and now they're non-alcoholics. So the same peg is there, but they were alcoholics, now they're non-alcoholics, but there's always the peg. It's always centered on the idea of alcohol. I'm either a drinker or a non-drinker. So when we give all these meanings up, we give it all up, and see that maybe at the moment I'm partaking in, let's say, smoking. When there's no more inertia, energy pushed into that, which is a consciousness giving attention, focus onto something as if it has any importance, that's what creates that peg, that solidity, of which there are two sides. If we don't create that focus, and we just go, oh, it's smoking, and then I'm going to make myself, some food, and then I'll go and clean the house. Why should that particular activity be highlighted more than cleaning the house or making some food? Simply because we've heard that it's bad. everything can apparently have a good and a bad side to it. Eating food is healthy, is good. Eating too much food, and we can become overweight and unhealthy. Eating too little food, and we can become unhealthy. But the minute we place this attention and focus onto something, we've created solidity in something that never asked for it. So, in a way, the best way, and I've seen this here, this is the way things have just, it's not that I got rid of them or had to work at letting go. A long time ago, I used to smoke a lot of weed. And I've been asked, how did I stop? It stopped because there simply was no longer any focus on it whatsoever as being good or bad. It was what I felt like doing in the moment, so I did it and I enjoyed it completely. It was brilliant. And then this is the beauty of, I'd say, non-duality, which is just a word, is that the more we become everything, the nothing and the everything, we enter, like, again, just words, but we enter a state of bliss, a state of complete peace. And that natural inner feeling, sense, is higher than the feeling that I used to get when I got high. So it just stopped by itself because it was just no longer necessary, no longer required. It wasn't, in a way, it was seen that it was perfectly understandable why that would have happened, because at the time when smoking was happening, there was an incessant mind, and it used to calm the mind. But when the mind became calm, what was the point of it anymore? So it just stopped. But there was no action in stopping it, because it was never seen as being a problem needing to be fixed. So this, if these words were spoken to, I could say, identified people who believe that they're a body moving in space and time. This can be misunderstood. But if we are seekers of truth, then this will be clearer. And this is where it can get scary, because as everything is falling away, as all energy remnants dies, we empty out completely. Everything's allowed. Everything's okay. The body is very simple. It's a biological machine. It feeds, goes to the toilet, sleeps, walks. It's very simple. And I guess you really get to see for the first time with clarity how much the mind, again, the mind doesn't exist, but just to be able to speak, how we've simply recorded what has been told to us, all these judgments of what is right and wrong. And this idea of positionality that I was mentioning about creating putting attention on a so-called addiction, pegging it. The same happens with everything. So it's the same with things like self-love. That there's a me that I have to love or not love. And whatever you peg, whatever the consciousness focuses on, as if it has any solidity, until it is seen that everything is empty, everything, completely, totally empty. So the projection is the only thing that can give anything solidity. And as soon as anything is solid, it has a positive and a negative side, a right and a wrong. So I have to love myself, so then there will automatically in the mind be a play of loving yourself and hating yourself, loving yourself and hating yourself. It's abandoning all of it. The body doesn't need that. It is self-loving already. It's self-soothing already. Every cell knows how to settle, how to calm. The mind, when we're caught up in this illusion of time, and which is attached to these illusions of achievement in life, then we will push this organism in all sorts of unnatural ways. But in this world that is perceived as being so normal, it's what everybody's doing. And so that's what's happening, and that's fine.